Yeah, I love how you kind of talked about the recent patch, right? We haven't seen too much of a shakeup since the M series, right? Not too many things changed, but a couple of revamps, came out of nowhere, which definitely took the world by storm in the MLBB scene. I mean, you've got Kimmy with the new revamp, you've got Glue with the new revamp. It definitely can wreak some havoc, and I wonder if we're going to be seeing a little bit of that today. And as we always see in the NACT, the meta will start to shift as we get closer and closer to that grand finals. And so far, I would say this is kind of textbook, right? That Mathilda, that Fanny Ban, the Kalia, it can definitely get taken out as well. So we're going to have to see how this goes. But nonetheless, this is game number 1. Remember, it's a best of 3 Overskilled up against Villain Era. A couple of familiar names from both sides, but definitely I would say a lot more seniority when it comes to the OGs versus the new faces. The seniority usually has the better half of this.
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to tell here. I think initially I did go with Overskilled here because they did make it through the first round. So it's kind of hard to bet against a team that has the momentum like that. Here, as we're seeing in the draft, we're kind of getting through a lot of those supports, a lot of those mechanical heroes that can get the stuns out there, that can get people away or help with the engagements. Some of the assassins, I'm assuming Joy might be on that list as well to get banned off. And then we're going to start looking possibly for some of those fighter pickups. And if it is going to be a fighter pickup, what I've noticed has been kind of a routine for a lot of people right now has been a priority of Valier. With some of his changes he's had, that little fire pool that he's able to put down, the CC he gets from that, he can basically spam that from mid game, which really becomes this huge problem for a lot of those slower fighters, those slower tank front lines through the mid game.
You talk about him, and we talk about another mage we've been seeing a lot of, the Sicilian. He's been coming out left and right and definitely can wreak havoc. I know it got a little bit of some readjustment when it came to the mid game on how fast his stacks can actually take off to make up for that, but it's still been a dominant force. Speaking of dominant forces, the gold lane has still been a very big problem. Even with the recent patch, they've been trying to kind of limit how fast the gold laners can take off. But man, they're still going off at a pretty fast rate. The Granger, even getting a little bit of a nerf, is still one of those heavy hitters that we might be seeing super early in the draft.
Yeah, you mentioned Granger got a nerf. He's still up there, still is able to scale very well. They cannot do enough to him. He's one of my favorite heroes, so Newton, you can't stop. You can't stop. We can leave him where he's at right now. He's one of my favorite marksmen out there. But man, they have really kept that hammer on him. And speaking of marksmen, you talked about it. That revamp on Kimmy has made her a priority here, at least for Overskilled.
Yeah, Kimmy is definitely going to be a problem. I mean, with the revamp, has additional CC in her kit as well. It's definitely very mobile. You're going to have to watch out for that. And not to mention, she can continuously blast. Once she fills up that energy, she can shoot all the way through you to everybody in the back line, which could be definitely a problem. You need somebody to be able to kind of kite around and get to the back line. A Joy getting taken off the table is going to be very hard. Maybe a CC. Lucas, it could definitely be an option as well to be able to get back there and wreak some havoc.
Yeah, really interesting, especially for Kimmy. For me right now, I'm actually kind of curious. Because I've heard mixed reviews about Kimmy when she's in the gold lane. Ranking myself, I've experienced her against her in the mid lane, and she kind of shines there. So I'm wondering if opening with this allows Overskilled a little bit of juggling possibilities, because we don't exactly know where it's going to go. We see it was Sleeps who picked it up. He is their gold laner, so it might be kind of cornering himself, keeping that in the gold lane, but it does allow some very tanky and CC heavy picks coming from Villain Era, especially with that Gatakacha pickup.
Yeah, and speaking of pickups, there goes another revamped hero, the double revamp combination over there from Overskilled. They're going to go ahead and pick up Glue as well, which I think is an excellent pickup. I mean, you get that regen with the Slam, able to definitely have a heavy impact. The Suyo to combine with that as well. It's a strong frontline composition, but when you look at the other side, they have double frontline as well. Could be good for the Kimmy to possibly be able to burst them down, but definitely needs to watch out as the Katat, the Lucas, both of them are great at closing the distance.
Yeah, one thing here I'm wondering is what we're going for with that mage pick. You mentioned earlier Sicilian, who will do good against the glue. We're looking for something that does area of effect type of damage. Sicilian can throw down that area. Vexana's another big one. Aurora, even though we haven't seen too much from Aurora, I want to say in the past few months as a priority, I think here might be very good, especially for an engagement composition that we're seeing here from Overskilled. And if we don't go with a mage here from Villain Era, you can bet that's going to be something that Overskilled is going to be looking to deny. And they do. They go with the Claude.
Okay, so they're going to lock in that Claude. It's going to be great to be able to scale. Has some great AoE damage on top of that, and is very mobile. It's a very good hero to be able to stay alive in that gold lane, especially if Overskilled decides to try and gank down there. The survivability in the gold lane is definitely working. I would say survivability overall for Villain Era's looking pretty solid. So we'll have to see how that plays in. We've yet to see a mage slotted for either side, and now we're possibly going to be seeing a lot of those banned off the table. You mentioned you'd like to see a little bit of that crowd control come into effect. I feel like both sides, crowd control for Villain Era is pretty solid. I would say it's lacking for Overskilled. Yes, Kimmy has a little bit of crowd control, but is it enough to really rely on? That's going to be what we're keeping a close eye on today.
Yeah, and you can start seeing some of the mages already being banned out by Villain Era. Kimmy, she does pack a punch now when it comes to the CC. I want to say her second ability now can kind of stick you, root you in place. Her ultimate now has I was gonna say a sucking ability. It brings everybody together after after it's done. So I mean, she's a pretty heavy CC marksman when it comes to it. It's sometimes I want to say she lacks a little bit in the early game. So we're gonna see if Overskilled maybe pays a little bit more attention when it comes to the routing of there. Another I want to say roam / mage taken out for the side of Overskilled as they take out that nether realm in the form of their pick.
Now, I would say a Farza. I'm expecting that to get picked up. A Farza, Sicilian maybe from either side would be great here. The Beatrix being taken off the table. If you pick up the Farza for the side of Overskilled, it could be a little risky, but I mean, at least you have the survivability aspect, right? I mean, you're looking at a Gatot able to drop down with that AOG. You're looking at this Lucas to be able to get there with the Sacred Beast form. Not to mention a Claude with the Blazing Duet to be able to get there with the BMIs. You don't want to have too stationary mage. If you go Sicilian, it could work out. Yeah, you fight from afar, but if they close that distance, it could cause some trouble.
Yeah, and the thing about Gattacacha, depending on what this Lucas is going to be playing, if he's playing in the XP lane, fine. Then we have something that can set the tone for Gattacacha. The one thing that a lot of teams, they have issues with is they pick up the Gattacacha and they expect him to initiate with that Avatar the Guardian. And that just takes so long. Everybody sees it coming. You need something to set the tone for it, to set the CC so that in the middle of the fight, then he can spring that ult out and it really connects on there. You're right on the dot as Farja gets scooped up by Villain Era. It accomplishes a lot of goals, staying in that back line, being able to lay down a lot of that AoE damage, which they're going to need. But are they going to have enough protection for the Farja, especially with the Hylos? I was waiting for this pickup to come immediately, because as soon as that Feathered Airstrike comes down, we're going to have a glorious pathway so the team can try to connect on her right away.
Okay, so we're seeing Kimmy as the mid laner for this one, so we're going to see that Moscow put in the gold lane. Interesting. We'll see how this double marksman composition works out against Villain Era. Still one pick left for the Giga Chat over there. See what Villain Era decides to close this out with, but it's definitely going to be a treat to watch. Now, the Farza being slotted in on the side of Villain Era, it's great because there's a lot more mobility. Farza got a lot of buffs. Where not only skill 1 able to mark the enemy's position now more effectively, but a movement speed on the Wings by Wings has been increased as well. So the mobility can definitely work in the favor to not only engage but disengage in tricky situations.
I think we got these a little mixed up here. I believe Gilla on the CC is going to be in the XP lane. Farja, you're absolutely right, is going to be in the mid lane. And Farja works, especially against a double marksman composition. As soon as she gets that ultimate, that is just an intense amount of suppressive fire coming down. Even if you are able to close the distance on her, you still have to survive that initial onslaught. 1, 2, maybe even 3 3 strikes, especially because after she lands the first hit, she can get that stun on you as well. So it's all going to be about how Overskilled can initiate to stop that feathered airstrike and how Villain Era can protect the Farja as well during these.
Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we jump into game number 1. The match you guys have been waiting for. The season has started for NACT Spring. You've got 2 amazing competitors going head-to-head. Overskilled versus Villain Era.
I am so excited. And what more could you ask for, too? We got a little sneak peek at some of those Naruto skins out there on the field. Both teams looks like they're, I want to say, Villain Era just slightly behind when it comes to clearing out the jungle here. Kevy doing a good job making sure he's getting that information and feeding it to his team.
And I love how you asked the question about, like, what was Kohari going to run, or where was Gatot and where was the Lucas going to go, and now we're going to go ahead and see that in full effect. But yeah, I think the story for today is definitely, ooh, first blood already, PDR taking down Stress Bomby.
Yeah, Villain Era doing a great job reading the field, being aware, and reacting immediately. Stress needs to know that he's not going to be able to make those plays if he does not have an escape. Even used his flicker and still died.
Yeah, this is the revamped glue, man. What's going on? He needs a double revamp. You got to be careful, man. Falling that early can definitely be costly. Villain Era, they have a slight advantage, and not to mention, I like the way their composition is stacked, right? As long as Kong is able to kind of rush around with this Farza on the double marksman composition, they got to be very careful on their positioning, or he'll be able to burst them down.
Yeah, you can see right there. PDR doing a good job. He did take a little bit of damage, but that's what he's there for. Got it, Katja. Stay in front of those bushes. Make sure that he is that front line, protecting the squishies in the back, protecting Kong, still putting out some damage there. And here we're going to see is we're still just about 1 for Villain Era, waiting on this first turtle and waiting on that fight. Ooh!
Ooh.
Stressed actually goes down there again, and that is unfortunate as Villain Era looks to have a firm control. Big feathered airstrike comes out, takes down Churi with the help of Gilla on the back line, and that is going to be a free turtle for Villain Era.
Yeah, Stress Bomby having a very stressful time finding his proper footing in the beginning of this match. Now 2 deaths in. Even with the Brave Smite, even with the skill regen, HP regen to be able to sustain himself, it's not enough, especially this early in the game. And Villain Era, they're punishing.
Yeah, and this is exactly the value, and this aren't even the marksmans just yet. You have a Kong doing such a great job of nailing down Stress, being able to put down that damage. We were talking about this. AoE is the big killer for Glue right now because you're able to hit all of him, all of his little minions as well. PDR taking a heap of damage on the 50%. Glorious Pathway is out. Kevy onto the back line. Kong putting down that suppressive fire with the feathered airstrike. Bomby ready for the hills, and there goes PDR into the back line, trying to put some damage on, and down goes Myth. Kevy on the run, looking for an escape. Even with the healing, he is taken down as well, and Stress jumps into the midst of it, but he is not long for this world. Kong with the flicker onto him is gonna be taken out.
Yeah, it's Overskilled trying to be a little aggressive, trying to find their footing, but again, it's still not working in their favor. Got to be very careful, or they're going to find themselves in a hole they can't climb out of. You're already seeing a gold lead by 2K, a big stun, and Kong finding Churobami.
It was actually expertly played by Sleeps there, waiting for Farja to bring out that ultimate and then use the stun to take him out. But still, we still had Churro go down to the damage from that. And this is what we were talking about. Even if you are able to bring down Kong, you're still talking about 1 or 2 shots, and that's still a whole lot of damage.
Taking the damage, Kevy Bomby, Glorious Pathway, trying to get out. AOG dropping down.
Yeah, PDR looking for a little bit of an escape. In comes a sleep, traps him against the wall. Nice set or attempt there by Churros. Not going to be able to find it. They latch onto Kong. The split on top of the mage's head. You can take a look here in the back line. Kahari fighting for the life, trying to go in, finds a kill on Sleep. Skilla finds one onto Churro, and they are not done as Kevy finds himself in the afterlife, and they are looking for another one onto Stressed. And what is it? They does get himself away, but we are looking at a 2-11 lead for Villain Era.
A massive push forward for Villain Era, able to stampede through, able to take the turtle, take several kills along the way. 11-2 at only the 5-minute mark. We're looking at 4,000 of a gold lead, and this is a very hard situation for Overskilled. They went really unorthodox, right? The double marksman combination, and typically when you have this combo, you want to let them get their farm, get their gold, so they can hit like a truck, but now being behind, you're looking at the death counters climbing. Churobami, 3 deaths on his side, Sleeps, 2 deaths on his side as well, but on the other side, Kong, great placement with the Feathered Airstrike, 2-0-7, 7 assists so far, the highest in the game.
Yeah, and this right now, I want to say this kind of comes down to a composition that needed some time to get online. And right now, with the point that they're at, Stressed Bommy 0-3 right now, there's very little that he can do for his team. You want your roam to be able to sit in front. You want him to be able to check bushes. But at this point, if he checks the wrong bush, that is going to be by Stressed here for another kill. 0-2 right now. We're about a 4K lead. It's not completely out of the books just yet for Overskilled.
Yeah, not out of the books just yet, but definitely a rocky road of a start, as you are seeing some of them items on the board. Even if you look at the gold lane, right? Corrosion Sight, Demon Hunter Sword picked up over there by Jatizi, so he's going to be able to hit pretty hard and pretty fast. So they are going to have to watch out for him as he decides to kind of wrap around and engage. He hasn't really picked up on the kills yet, but those items are definitely going to count when it matters the most. But the story right now is really between Gilla and Kong. Their synergy to be able to wrap around and find these pickoffs has been crucial for Villain Era.
Ooh, interesting fight here. They do go in against Sleeps. You can see him try to go on, and he might be taken out. He's doing a good job, but I don't think he's long for this world. We do see a BMI there from Jotteezy, and they're going to go ahead and find themselves another tower. But they trade that for a mid tower.
Yeah, not just any tower. Tier 1, but a big play.
Yeah, coming in, Kohari actually gets jumped and maybe out of position here. Myth does find himself a turtle. Kevin locked on. We do have the air strike coming down from Kong, trying to put the damage on. Stressed with the split covering the escape of his team. And just like that, Overskilled starting to find themselves a little bit of momentum.
Yeah, it's huge being able to take that tier 1 turret in the mid lane. That opens up a lot of opportunity to be able to invade inside of the enemy's jungle, and I would trade that for an off lane tier 1 turret any day of the week. But again, the economy is steady rising for the side of Villain Era, but it's only a 3K gold lead. It's honestly a little impressive with how much the kills have been working in their favor, how Overskilled is still trying to hang in there, but you are seeing a lot of these items start to stack up, and they're going to have to watch out, right? That's when it's going to start getting toward that 10-minute mark. We're going to see a couple of these power spikes hit up. We're going to see Jatteezy really start rushing in and having a major effect, and they have yet to find an answer to get around a Kong 6 on this Farza.
Yeah, and that's been the problem here. But as we move later into the game, as the damage becomes a problem, as the split pushing ability from a Moskov becomes a problem, they're going to start hitting at all of these different angles that Villain Era is going to need to be prepared for. Not just in their fights, but watching all over the map. As you see, they're starting to slow down. They're with that middle tower taken down. It opens up the map, and it means that Villain Era needs to start turtling. They need to be afraid of where they're going, which is allowing Overskilled to just traipse all over the map, take towers that they want.
Yeah, they're gonna have to be careful. There's still a shot, an opportunity for Overskilled to flip the script and take advantage of this game. Had a very hard early start, but now it seems like they are starting to find their composure, and I definitely agree with you right there, right? Keep a close eye on Sleeps. Watch his positioning, right? He's kind of traversing across the map, a little bit of some solo action, but he has that SOD to be able to, at a moment's notice, traverse across the map and find that opportunity that Overskilled can lean on. And especially as he starts to stack these items, he's going to be a problem. Golden Staff now picked up by Jatizi as well. Those enhanced basic attacks can definitely be a threat as we see the Lord spawn in.
And as we're moving into the mid, going into the late game, you see this great macro coming from Overskilled. They pushed 2 lanes that need to be answered by Villain Era, and immediately that signals to Overskilled to start on this Lord. We do have the glorious pathway onto the ground, 10% on this Lord. It has been reset on the backline. Myth looking for an opportunity. Kohari dives in, gets pushed back by a Spirit, taken down. Myth with the kill onto Kohari. That means Villain Era does not have their jungler coming in with a blazing duet, and Jatizi gets taken down by Sleeps. Turning this around is Overskilled. 2 for 3 right now. Down goes Gilla, and Kong alone flapping back to base to tell the story with 3 up for Overskilled.
Catching lightning in a bottle is what we've just witnessed from Overskilled. Kong trying to use a feathered airstrike on his way out, but Overskilled has done it. They have found the needle in the haystack, and they have pulled it out. The Lord now marching on the bottom side.
Yeah, and especially with the macro that they've been doing, forcing these lanes, the Lord's probably going to get him a tier 2 tower. If they split up, they might get another one up at top. There's the macro here, and this is a huge lesson for all teams, for all viewers when it comes to macro and that early game, especially with how belligerent Villain Era was able to get a lot of those early kills on Overskilled. They remained calm. They made the right exchanges that they needed, especially in the mid lane. Speaking of which, PDR gonna have to use his ultimate defensively to get away, and that's all she wrote for that bottom lane. Meanwhile, Kahari diving onto the back line against 3 members. Nobody's there to help him. In comes PDR for the backup. Down goes Churro, stressed next on the list, and just like that, Villain Era looking to turn this around.
Okay, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's Kohari the Brave, because the way he's playing, it's starting to give some NACT flashbacks, but this time inside of the jungle for Villain Era instead of the gold lane. But nonetheless, Kohari, you know, I was questioning, rushing in with this Lucas, trying to centralize himself in between Overskilled. Could be costly, especially when he's the jungler, but now it's starting to pay its dividends as we cross the later half of this match.
Lucas is one of those heroes that I rue the day when I see him going in, especially at low health. The amount of defense, the amount of damage that he can tank while still dishing out damage onto the back line is so immense. Put that on a player like Kohari, who is known for his big plays when he used to be in the gold lane making these huge plays. You're gonna have something that you need to watch out for if you're Overskilled. Right now, starting to even things out, even though the score says something different, the gold tells another story. However, that map still wide open for Villain Era.
Yeah, and you talked about Lucas. I noticed he picked up those Queen's Wings, so he's going to have that that passive, right? When his HP gets low, he's going to have that damage reduction. He's going to have that CD on his skills as well to come into effect to be even more of a threat, and it definitely came in at the right time over there for Villain Era, because it was looking a little shaky. Right now we're witnessing a battle of tug of war. Even Myth Bomby picking up the Queen's Wings himself over there on this Suyo.
Yeah, and this is a pretty even matchup when it comes for the Lucas and the Suyu. I do feel like Suyu does need just a little bit more farming as we take a look here at the items. 12K. So, I mean, Myth has been putting in some farming work. He's been out there towing those fields, hoeing the grain, making sure he's still keeping up in the gold. So, when it comes to his engagement here, he should be able to hold his own.
Yeah, and can Jatizi stand his ground against the double marksman combination? We'll find out here soon as both teams battling it out in the Lord Pit.
Yeah, great clear by Kong, but Stressed goes into the back line, looking for the stun. Are they going to be able to get it? Down goes Myth, and another one down. He tries to get away. The Lord is down. Kohari finds himself a reckoning there as a Sleeps runs for the hills, and that is a Churro taken down. They won the battle. They do lose one in the back line for Villain Era, but this is definitely a W for them for that engagement.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's like a reverse Uno card has been played by Villain Era. This time they take out 4 members of Overskilled. Feathered Airstrike on to sleeps and marching down the mid lane.
With a tricky little flicker there, and that's gonna be a wrap. First game going to Villain Era.
Villain Era. It looked like everything was gonna work in their favor in the beginning, but Overskilled, a light turned on out of nowhere, but quickly shut off, and Overskilled took control back. As we see a lot of those new faces on the scene, the Giga Chads. But nonetheless, 22-8. When you see a game like this, the fact that Overskilled was almost able to turn this around with such a massive deficit in kills just shows you that you cannot afford any mistakes.
Yeah, and that's going to be the big takeaway here. Even with that mid-game little spike coming out from Overskilled, you still have to have, I want to say, they had the plan. Stress tried to get to that back line, tried to find Kong, but what it ended up doing was left their line open, and they just took too much in the late game. We've talked about this before. Late, mid-game spikes are great, but you have to be able to get to that path. You have to be able to pave the way there and not be taken down too far here. And Villain Era, they just showed how well they were put together, and especially, let's call it, some mistakes there in the early game by Stressed. Maybe overthinking the changes to Glue and thinking he was a little tankier than he was.
Yeah, it was definitely a stressful time for Stress Bomby in the beginning with that Glue. I think we saw like 3 deaths before the 5-minute mark over there on his side, and it definitely gave a lot of an issue over to Overskilled to kind of pick that back up, especially with the double marksman composition with that Kimmy in the mid lane as well, who had a very rough game on top of that. Only 1 kill and 5 deaths, 5 assists. But on the other side, a lot of things were going right for the side of Villain Era. You got to see Kong in action with this Farza, who he said has got the buff. Everything's looking great. I would honestly say one of the best mages available right now when you are drafting, and it definitely worked out in Villain Era's favor.
Yeah, we're going to find out here, especially 08 and 22. Right from the beginning, they just came out swinging. I do want to say Overskilled kind of showing the little pieces of what they needed, what they were all about, especially being able to get that macro up, getting the better of exchanges and some of that mid game, especially with that mid tower. They just weren't able to hang on to some of those fights, and especially when it came to the composition. We talked about it, especially if you're going to go with a double marksman composition. I want to say Farsha probably would have been the top of my ban list to take out of that, especially because of how badly she hurts marksmen. Not just the fact, I mean, you do have an engagement to kind of counter her. However, you're pretty much guaranteed 1 to 2 feathered air shots raining down onto some of your squishy marks. And as we saw, she was able to do tons with even just that little opportunity.
Yeah, just tons of damage, and where Kong wasn't, Gilla was able to find those opportunities, find those ganks, and find those sets that Villain Era could rely on. But on the side of Overskilled, like we said, they ran the Moskov, great, but then they also went in with this Kimmy, and mind you, picked the Kimmy first in the draft. They prioed that, and they had blue side. It kind of raises the question, was that worth it? Could that have been the mistake? Maybe putting too much on this Kimmy and assuming that maybe a team like Villain Era would think that I was going in the gold lane and catching them off guard inside of the mid lane instead. But I feel like it's just a little too risky, especially when you're playing a best of 3.
Yeah, take a look at some of these replays here. I mean, just how Kohari was on this Lucas. Lucas has been a problem when it comes to a lot of these matches. When it comes to any type of backline, look at how low he is. Like 10% health there, and it feels like he's hitting you harder because of how well he can get into the backline, how well he can take people down, and then just escape without any type of repercussions. Not just that, but in the early game, it did feel like Overskilled kind of overestimated how strong they would be. There were a lot of stock put into this Glue revamp, and I felt like they felt like he was an early game character, and he's really not. The entire draft coming from Overskilled kind of really signaled to me late game, and they didn't have anything to really cover them in that early bit.
And I think it was a wise decision. I mean, glue's great when you have like stationary mages, stationary backlines that you can easily wrap around and grab. But when you have a mage like Farza, when you have a Claude you're going against, these are backlines that glue is pretty much not ever gonna catch, which means he has to focus in on other heroes. Who's he gonna go grab? Lucas? That's kind of what Lucas wants at that point. So it just doesn't really work in his favor. Yes, I think the glue is great, just not in this specific style of drafting. Maybe could have waited for a Phoveus to come out or a fighter that was a little less mobile, because the CC definitely was great at kiting around and finding those opportunities. So stepping into game number 2, there was a lot of things that we saw right from Villain Era. There was a couple of things we saw right from Overskilled as well, though, right? They started to try and turn things around. There was a moment where they took a Lord. They took down 4 members of the Giga Chads over there and were able to push through with the Lord, but then out of nowhere, overly aggressive, and it costed them that advantage that they claimed.
Yeah, we're gonna have to see. The one thing I would like to see. Well, what I want to talk about some of the positive, like I talked a little bit about from Overskilled, is that they were able to kind of come in with the macro. They were able to make some better exchanges and showing why they kind of got up here when it came to exchanging that bottom lane for the mid lane. And then once they had the mid lane, they were able to kind of move around as we move here into another draft. But they were able to move around like clockwork, get some of the towers, start with some of the Lord pushes as well. However, they just weren't able to hold on to it when it came to the initial composition and when it came to those team fights that they were really having an issue with. Here, we'll see if maybe, I want to say there's some glaring things that happen with certain compositions. I talked about it, I was pressing on this before. Double marksman, if you go with that, there's a reason it isn't picked often. It's because it makes 2 people on your team, they are very susceptible to a lot of damage without much payoff when it comes to the form of CC, which is usually the other edge of that sword when you pick a mage in mid lane. Here, we didn't really have that much of that, and you left Farja on the field. If you're going to be making these things that have these glaring weaknesses, you need to be able to kind of cover those up just a bit, or a team here like a Villain Era is going to be able to take advantage of it.
Yeah, I think it's just that situation where you show your cards a little too early. Yeah, they're great picks, but definitely should have waited a little bit later in the draft. But this time around, we are going to be seeing Villain Era on the blue side, Overskilled on the red, which should shift things possibly in their favor. A couple of things we're noticing on the ban board, though. We are looking at that Lucas taking off. Looks like Overskilled feels like that was a very, very, very big problem, especially with Kohari, the Brave over there. Running that, because you don't really know where the Lucas is gonna go, right? I mean, you don't know if it's gonna go in the XP lane, you don't know if it's gonna go in the roam position, throw it in the jungle. It can pretty much get it all done, and we got to see that in game number 1. So I'm not gonna knock it too far off of Overskill, but we still have some valuable pickups on the table. The Kalia is definitely available, some great CC, brand new hero to kind of shake up the scene. It is still currently walking.
Yeah, Kalia's still out there. Suyu's still out there, especially with what are you going to match with a Suyu if that's going to get picked up? That's going to be a priority out here as well. And then kind of wondering, we've got... I want to say Hayabusa's still out there. The one thing for me though is that Hayabusa, while you gotta be a great Hayabusa if you're gonna pick him up early, because there's just certain things that have really started coming down the line when it comes to assassins like that to be able to kind of step into there. You talked about it, Kalia pick taken off the board for Overskilled. We're gonna see what Villain Era is gonna be looking at for their first pick.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned the Hayabusa, and it has got a little bit of a nerf. I mean, back before the patch, the Pinnacle Ninja was pretty much able to shred anybody toward that mid to late game. It didn't matter if you had defensive items or not. If you weren't stacked against a teammate, you were going down. But it looks like they have tried to patch that a little bit, so a little bit of a nerf there. I'm not sure how effective the patch is, so if you do see the Hayabusa, definitely going to keep a close eye on that. But yeah, we are seeing the Lucas taken off the board this time. Some great options. The Marksman can definitely be solidified. You can pick up the Granger. Still not too many marksmen that can go against it. The Harith is still up for grabs as well, which could be a decision. They can go safe and pick up the Gatot. There you go. You lock that in. It's a flexible pick. So, I mean, you can run in the XP lane. You can run it as the roam position. So far, I'm liking the way this is turning out so far.
I don't mind the Gatats. I feel like maybe it offsets some picks coming from Overskilled as well. This means you're not going to, especially if you're setting up for an assassin pickup on your side, the Gatat makes sure that you have a little bit of that tankiness in case there's an early invade, somebody like a Hilda, somebody like a Khalid trying to come in there. You've got something in the front line that could take that off of your mind. Here, I'm expecting potentially a Suyu pickup here by Overskilled. He is wide open. You talked about it, Harith coming out. I want to say it's been a while for me to see Harith because he's always been banned. He did receive a few nerfs this last round here, but I mean, an immense amount of damage. Once you get through that early game, get a couple of those items, max out that a cooldown on him, he's going to be buzzing around. It's a little early for me though, and there's still a lot of CC that can be done to Harith to really like hunker him down.
But I'm curious to see which way this goes now because it's paired up with the Phoveus, and I mean, against the Phoveus, you could technically pick up the glue here, but it's going to be for Villanera, not Overskilled this time. But again, you mentioned this Harith. It was solidified first from Overskilled, which would be great against the glue in a Gatot, right? Those up close and personal heroes. You drop down that Chrono Fission and rush in to be able to take them down with that Zaman Force, and could work in their favor. Now, there's still some heavy picks on the board. The Fars is available. The Granger's available. They're going to go for the Esmeralda instead. Now, this is a twister. Esmeralda's been getting nerfed because it's been so effective internationally, but to be able to see it now in the NACT, I wonder if it still hits like it used to after the recent nerfs.
Well, if you think about it, her kit is made to take health from shielding of enemies. The first two pickups from Overskilled, when you lay down that Zaman Force and you put down that dash, you get yourself a little bit of shield. If you have the Zaman Force, you dash, 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 dash. That's a lot of shield for Esmeralda to pick up. Same thing when it comes to the Demonic Force. You come slamming down, or when you use the first ability from Phoveus, what is it? The Astros Eye, I believe it is. When you slam it down, you get a little bit of shield from that as well. So she's gonna have herself a decent amount of shield that she's going to be able to soak up from these guys.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a lot of mobility working in Villanera's favor because Esmeralda's way more mobile than the Phoveus is. It's actually surprising how fast the Phoveus can move with how slow the animation is when he's walking. But it's not enough to be able to catch up to that Esmeralda, so we'll see how that fares off. There goes a little bit of that mobility booster, though. They pick up the Hylos, have the Glorious Pathway, but this is starting to turn into a very centralized frontline composition from Overskilled.
Yeah, and we'll see how this kind of plays out. I do like, I want to say, the maneuverability that seems like it's coming out from Villanera. Their picks very much seem like they're based on as a response to what Overskilled is putting out there. Despite the Farja, though, this is the one thing that kind of is a little interesting here. This might be something that Kong just really, really likes, but when it comes to the picks here, there's nothing that a Farja really shines at here, especially because Harith is like your main target here, but he can get away very quickly. Phoveus can close the distance on you so quickly, and you're definitely not aiming for Hylos with that feathered airstrike. So it's going to be very interesting to see where that damage is going to come out. You're going to need to have a very strong early game to get her fed, to make sure that she's still a threat to the teams through that mid and late game.
Yeah, and I think the question with that, though, is, I mean, it's definitely a different dynamic, like you mentioned, compared to Game 1. It's not a double marksman composition that the Spars is going against. So you see those feathered airstrikes, you see those quick pushes to try and get some early kills. They're going to be a little bit beefier. It's going to be harder to be able to pull that off with this Farza up against the Phoveus, up against this Hylos. But I will say, the thing that Farza shines in is, it's been buffed in every single category. But on top of that, they can provide early game pressure and fast, which means even though in theory, technically, they shouldn't be able to burst it down, a team like Overskilled, who we've seen in game number 1 make a lot of early game mistakes, when you pair that up against a fast composition that can apply that pressure, it might force them to make mistakes at an even faster pace, and I think that's the plan for Villanera.
Yeah, we'll see. I do like the potential of the CC that can kind of come down. You've got the the ultimate coming from Esmeralda. You've got the ultimate coming from Gatakacha. Oh, and we've even got a little bit from Kohari here that can kind of stack them all up with that alpha, the Spear of Alpha. So you have a lot here that can group up these people into a nice, neat little ball where Farja can rain down onto them, where the Claude can rain down onto them. The one thing Overskilled, I mean, they have, I want to say, a decent amount of movement on their side. The only problem is some of them are a little bit more flexible with that movement. Harith can kind of get all over the map as he pleases. Same thing with Suyu. Phoveus has one direction he goes, and that's towards the fight. And once he's going towards the fight, the rest of the team needs to be on the same book.
And that's the thing. Usually Phoveus is best paired with a support that can at least keep him alive. Mathilda would be the most optimal combination, but I feel like the Hylos can work. I mean, you have the Glorious Pathway, but he has to get on that like a taxi express when it's available, or he's going to be in a lot of trouble. But wait a second. He does have a little bit of breathing room, okay? Hear me out. It's an Eve. You got artillery versus artillery, but that grid square is what I'm going to keep a close eye on, right? If it's good positioning with the grid square from that real-world manipulation, they can slow down majority of the members of Villainera, but it could be tricky because there's a lot of mobility on their side.
Yeah, there's a lot of mobility. It's really going to come down to how is this feathered airstrike versus the real world manipulation being placed. Is the feathered airstrike going down first, and then we're countering it by throwing down the RWM and trapping her with Hylos charging at her? Or are we throwing down this real world manipulation and allowing Kong on the Farja to stay outside that line and still rain down damage? It's going to be very tricky for both of these teams, and I want to say pay attention to both of these mages to see where the success lies.
Yeah, the mages, and I would say the tanks as well. The tank mage synergy is definitely something we got to keep on. Even the fighters, because Stress Bomby was the one who fell several times in the beginning for the side of Overskilled, and Villainera was able to make the most out of his deaths. And as we jump into game number 2, ladies and gentlemen, best of 3 between Villainera and Overskilled. Villainera up 1-0.
Yeah, a little bit of pressure here at the mid lane. Overskilled this time as well, getting a big jump on the... Oh, actually, no. Actually, I thought that was the second one. He's actually a little bit behind right now. Suyu behind Kohari on this Alpha. Alpha does have a very fast clear speed. He's going to be able to get to this Lethal Wanderer first, but he's going to meet Kev Bomby and Churro there trying to guard it. Now we do have a 2v3 over here. Oh, and picked up by Kohari. Retri is strong with this one.
Retri is strong with this one. The Force is more live than ever. And I'm looking at Gilla, right? He's running on this Impure Rage, so he's going to have a lot of that extra skill damage and some mana restore on hit. But he pairs that up with the Sprint, which makes him even more mobile, which can be a little bit of a problem for Stress Bomby, rocking on that Flicker as a get-out-of-jail free card. We know in game number 1, Stress Bomby was kind of the victim's advocate when it came to falling in the beginning of the match 3 times in a row. And maybe with this Phoveus, who's not as mobile, he won't really be in the front lines unless he's ready to take somebody out.
Yeah, and I want to say a much safer game here played by Stressed. Oh, a little bit of engagement here. Kohari sees it from a mile away, backs up, and just like that, they have to turn, walk away. This isn't the bathroom. They go ahead and wander themselves back into their own jungle. But you have to wonder if Stressed not taking some of those early deaths might be a lot more beneficial for Overskilled. Maybe they would have won that last game if Stressed maybe had been just a little bit more careful. They wouldn't have been able to get those huge wins, those huge objectives that they got in the early game, and got such a sizable lead before the mid game came. Now we're on to the turtle. Ooh, we have an ultimate coming out. Does catch Kevy. PDR in the midst of it, putting down the damage. Real world manipulation is out, but on the back line, Gilla jumps deep, looking for the damage onto Churro. Is it going to be enough? He does take away, running away from the tower. Myth gets taken down. Kong raining down the artillery onto Stressed, who finds the safety of his tower. And that is just a good team fight from Villainera.
Yeah, and good pressure from Gilla to force members out to the top side. It looked like it wasn't going to work in their favor, right? They used a lot of ultimates onto Kevy Bomby, and he was able to get out there with the Glorious Pathway. I expected Overskilled to try and wrap around and punish but Gilla wrapped around and stopped them from being able to push in on the counterplay, and overall costed Overskilled the first turtle.
Yeah, and one thing I didn't even think of, when the real world manipulation comes down, it gives Eve a ton of shield at the beginning of it. Gilla immediately, you saw, was waiting for that real world manipulation to come down, immediately dives on with an ultimate, soaking up all that shield. Churro has to run for the safety of the tower, and that takes out a big amount of damage coming from Overskilled.
Yeah, it's definitely a more, I would say, placement level skills for Overskilled with this Eve, with this Harith, right? You got to drop that Zaman Force in the right position. You got to drop down the RWM.
Woo! Ooh, and we see a damage going down. Sleeves dashing back and forward, catches back to the safety of his tower. Real world manipulation is out. PDR misses Churro, waits too long, finds himself in a coma from all the CC. Kevy tries to protect him. He's not going to be able to get back to the safety of the tower. That is 4 members of Villain Era taking apart 2 from Overskilled.
Yeah, Churro Bomby not able to find the mark with the RWM from the side play. Kevy Bomby falling alongside him. 2 members down in that engagement, and a tier 1 turret on the bot side claimed even when the gold plating is still available.
Yeah, that's absolutely insane. Sleeps here, diving back and forth with Zaman Force. We do have the Feather Airstrike coming out. Kong looking for an escape, put some CC down on the back line. PDR does find a Stress, who already uses that demonic force, but is able to find himself an escape. And just like that, Gilla running through the mid there finds himself an out.
Yeah, but not an out for an objective, as they are going to fall in a pit, and Villain Era will claim the second turtle of this game. Now pushing toward the mid lane as well, and just off to a really good start. Kong spearheading the way and kills again on this Farza. Is it a comfort pick? Is it just because he knows it's one of the most dominant mages with the recent patches as well? It's definitely a safer option, and they're being very aggressive in the early game, and it's paying off.
Yeah, right here, Myth actually might be in trouble from the back line. PDR comes in there, half health at Myth, but that's going to go ahead, light up this second tower for the side of Villain Era. And Overskilled are at a loss right now, looking to try to respond. Gilla getting chased down, takes a heap of damage. The shielding doing a great job of protecting him as he suffers no death here and is going to be able to protect his tower.
Yeah, able to protect the tower, but you are going to go ahead and see Villain Era continue to on this push, right? They're trying to claim this tier 1 turret in the mid lane. Now they're really surgical the way they've been traversing across the map and claiming these objectives, and Overskilled running around like a chicken with his head cut off, not able to find a window of opportunity. Villain Era not giving them any breathing room. It's about a 3K gold lead 6 minutes in, but the same story we saw in game number 1.
We're going to go ahead and call that a lag spike there. That little miss coming up from Villain Era. Tried for a little bit of a surprise there on Overskilled. Both of them missed. But I want to say a lot of them just got countered out. We can take a look here at some of the items. 5K already on Kohari. 2K over Myth on a Suyu. That is just an immense amount here at the 6-minute mark. He is doing what needs to be done, especially with his team. He's continuing to keep that gold lead up there. And Myth is just having a problem, especially on a Suyu, where you want to get some kills or you want to get some farm, get to that mid game, and he's already struggling.
Yeah, struggling indeed in the battle on the way in the mid lane.
Oh, a little bit of a bad engagement there coming from Villain Air. They're going to try to turn it around here. Kohari is able to find himself a turtle. Comes in with the Spear of Alpha. Finds 2 with the help of Gilla. Unnamed soldier here. Gilla only has 1 kill, but I feel like Gilla has just been putting in work for Villain Era.
It's like the falling star moon when you see Gilla, the Giga Chad. It's like a bomb going off in slow motion, man. You see it coming and still, you know it's going off. You can't stop it. You just have to watch every piece of it. And right now, Villain Era, they're comfortable. They're not phased. They're pushing these objectives and rushing in for the tier 1.
Oh, Stress gets taken down, and down and out. That's 2 down for the side of Overskilled. Kohari on the front line. Sleep's taking a heap of damage, and Kohari's going to go ahead and disengage from this fight. You can see from the side there, Gilla was looking for an opportunity, did not quite find it. I feel like some of the picks here from Overskilled, ignored what was on the side of Villain Era. Especially for Churro. Churro is having a tough time here. Every single time he sets down that real world manipulation, he's got Kong gunning for him. He's got Gilla coming for him. He's got PDR with an Avatar of the Guardian. It's just so many people that are just waiting for you to stand still so that they can lunge at you.
Yeah, and speaking of lunging, you are going to see that Zaman Force drop down, Overskilled on the defense, trying to hold off Villain Era. Keep in mind, we have not even passed the 10-minute mark. Tier 1 falls in the mid lane, sieging toward that Tier 2 now. Villain Era applying a lot of pressure, and that lead is steadily climbing. You're looking at about 7,000 gold. I would love to see just how that fares off to these ADCs.
Oh, look at that damage coming out. Is it going to be enough? PDR gets taken down by Sleeps. We do have the Blazing Duet stressed on the bad way onto the back line. Gilla finding another kill for himself there. And that is a 1-for-2 collection for Overskilled. Just kind of goes into the favor of Overskilled. Maybe a little too much of, I want to say, a little eager by the side of Villain Era. They're not that far in the lead just yet.
Yeah, I like to say confidence sometimes breeds arrogance, and you got to be careful when you have this lead. Still need to be strategic. Still need to take it as if you're tied up. You don't want to slip through the cracks and let these things walk in Overskilled's favor. As we seen in game number 1, they were almost able to bounce that back, but now with the Lord being taken down, Villain Era, another opportunity to push on forward.
Ooh. Yeah, Kohari goes in there. We do have the glorious pathway laid down there. PDR from the side looking for Churro. He's doing such a great job just by himself, able to stave off 5 members of Overskilled, allowing Villain Era to start just having their way in their jungle.
Yeah, and speaking of jungle, massive invasion from Villain Era. Gilla taking some hits.
With the feathered airstrike, the rain down damage, separating the two teams. Kong doing a great job here of using that, just waiting for the opportune moments. His great positioning, great protection from his team to make sure that he's not keeping himself in harm's way.
Speaking of harm's way, a lot of damage on the way on the top side as the Lord pushes in.
Gilla, over eager, gets in the back line, but takes a whole lot of tower shots. Down goes the feathered airstrike, pushing away the rest of Overskilled. Churro looking for an opportunity, was not able to find it. They're a little low here. Might want to think twice about what they're trying to accomplish as Overskilled, trying to get the most that they can here, protect some of these towers, get some of these minions, and try to even out this lead that seems to have just slipped away. They are at about a 6K gold lead, or deficit.
This is where you start seeing the mistakes start to kind of bleed through the cracks, right? I mean, they should have definitely pushed in for that tier 2 turret in the mid lane instead of trying to do a full siege for some kills on the top side, especially at the 11-minute mark, man. You got to get these objectives.
Oh, and here comes the damage. Sleeps able to find a kill onto PDR, turning it around. Blazing Duet from the backside in a bad way. Able to use that BMI to get away. Demonic Force on the back line. Kohari finds himself a kill, followed by Churro, who is able to repay the favor. 2 down for Villain Era, 3 down for Overskilled. Gilla trying to put the damage down, able to find a kill with the help of Jot onto Sleeps. 3 down for Villain Era, and Churro alone to tell the story of what happened.
What a story to tell, but I don't know if he'll be able to tell it for long, as you're seeing Jatizi rush in, possibly going to go in and try and take this turret. No, he's going to go in for the farm instead, but yet the story remains the same. This game has been in full control by Villain Era, but we are starting to see a couple of those mistakes start to kind of showcase itself as we cross the later half of this match. Right now, Kong off to a really great game yet again. He got the MVP for game number 1. Looks like it may be stacking up for game number 2 as well. These feathered airstrikes have been massive on the placements, keeping Overskilled out of pushing forward to be able to engage, and Churobami not having the easiest time matching with the artillery.
Yeah, it's just too much a CC down there for Sleeps. Sleeps is still doing a great job, 4-1 and 2 right now, but I want to say this is all basically on his back. Churro has been basically shut down at this point, and we need to maybe bait out some of these abilities before we're using that real-world manipulation, because he is becoming a huge target. Now, 50% down, feathered airstrike to zone out the rest of the team, stressed on the back line. Kohari gonna go ahead and feed into that fight there. Real world manipulation is out. Jatizi does find Kevy. Stressed is down. Jatizi finds the Lord and Villain Era, giving chase to Overskilled, running for the hills. Myth looking for the escape, not going to be able to find it. Evil Queller be damned, does use it to get away, and alone here to fight against this push from Villain Era, who are looking to surprise all of us and go with a clean sweep over Overskilled.
Yeah, looking for the clean sweep. Myth Bombi rushing in, but not going to be able to hold them off. And they have done it. They lit the fire early and burned it all the way to the end. Villain Era claiming the first series of NACT Spring 2025, moving on forward.
An excellent game, and I especially like it because I voted for Overskilled. I wanted to see somebody change my mind, somebody prove me wrong here. Villain Era, who were sent to the lower bracket, obviously used that momentum, learned a few things here, and definitely took it to Overskilled when it came to the draft, when it came to their momentum. I absolutely love, I want to say, the fluidity and flexibility of their draft and how they were able to answer here and basically shut down Overskilled.
Yeah, and shut down is exactly what we saw today. A dominant performance to take the first series of NACT Spring with a clean sweep, and against members who have competed in previous NACTs. I guess you have members from both sides as well, so it's a little bit of a mix of some veteran teams as we start off today's matches. But yeah, this is how the coin flips when it comes to a best of three, and unfortunately with that, Overskilled, they've been knocked out of the spring season, and Villain Era able to push on forward. A hard-fought battle, but well-deserved.
Yeah, even Gilla on the back line, a decent amount of damage dished out by him. He was just everywhere he needed to be, saving those ultimates for jumping down and making sure that Churro was not a problem for them, making sure to back off the mage. Once the mage is taken out, there was nothing in the early game that was really going to be a threat for you for a lot of those objectives. And unfortunately, by the time Sleeps came online, by the time he was able to start getting some of those kills, it was already too late, and Villain Era had basically started running away with the lead.
Yeah, and you know, we even asked the question, was it stress Bombi when he fell so many times in the first game? But the second game, he was able to sustain himself for a while, and it really wasn't him that kind of fell, but it was Kevy Bombi and also Churro Bombi, the tank mage synergy, that fell short. And I think that's really what we got to also keep a close eye on. Maybe that's the issue, is the tank mage synergy not able to keep up with Villain Era. Those rotations just way too fast, and then you allow that Farza to walk. It's definitely a gamble, especially when you've seen how dominant it was in game number one. And I think as we progress through the NACT spring season, it's definitely worth keeping a close eye on. Maybe not even letting the Farza walk. Maybe going in for that ban instead could be a viable option.
Well, there needs to be a way to kind of get there and get there early. The problem here is, like, they had people like Kev Bombi that I feel like you need to kind of stick with a plan 110%. What ended up happening is the reaction. You had the real world manipulation come down. You had the glorious pathway go out, go to the back line. As soon as they attacked the mage, the real world manipulation, the whole team kind of turned around. And now they need to protect the mage. They got to make sure nothing's happening there. Instead of, I feel like, all right, sorry, buddy, you're down. We got to force this this fight onto the back line. Unfortunate here. It just felt like Overskilled was kind of taking the clinic here as Villain Era just really kind of showed they were just very precise with what they wanted to do right from the draft.
Yeah, you can definitely tell when it comes to experience, when it comes to the micro plays, it definitely is more in favor for the side of Villain Era. Overskilled, like you mentioned, in a lot of these macro plays as well. A lot of those chained attacks, those combinations, you talk about the Falling Star Moon, the Feather Airstrike dropping down, the Spear of Alpha coming out. It's a lot to process and keep up with, and you've seen the Overskilled have a very hard time on the counter engages.
Yeah, and that was a big problem here. It almost felt like that first match was even sloppy for Villain Era. They realized more than Overskilled what their mistakes were and really kind of covered them up instead of allowing that mid-game rush to come from Overskilled. They really kind of tightened around all of these holes they had, and this one was kind of a wrap. This was right from the beginning. There really was not an opportunity at all for Overskilled.
And an opportunity for the side of Villain Era, as they are going to be the ones to push on forward. And already our first series out of the day. I know everybody's been watching, and I know our amazing host has been tuning in as well. We got to swing on over and see just how Liz feels about all of this action for the NACT spring season.
I mean, what a turn of events. We didn't get to see the casters' prediction slide in the beginning of the game, but I know that all of our casters, actually unanimous decision, voted for Overskilled. So to see how...
Oh, they didn't show it. It doesn't count.
Well, for that, in that way, then we all voted for Villain Era. So they did great. You can see so little mistakes coming out of Villain Era, and then like their pictures, they all looked very Giga Chat in their video cams. Everyone seemed very nonchalant with everything that went on, and it shows that they seem to have so much more experience as well as confidence. And let's take a look at who the MVP is for that series. I know Khan did a lot in the first game, was the in-game MVP, but it does seem like Kohari is the MVP of the series. Kohari the Brave, is it the same person?
I want to say yes. I'm pretty sure
that
it
is definitely him, unless they're using the same picture.
Yeah, I mean, he was the marksman for 2024 fall season, I would say, and then he did such an amazing performance throughout that season and actually got a lot of highlights. I wonder why he actually switched to jungle this time and took such a surprise to everyone.
Well, you know, honestly, I feel like it fits his personality a little bit better because he got a lot of highlights, but if you would have had a lot of lowlights as well, there would have been a lot of footage to throw on the channel. But I would definitely say it fits his nature when it comes to gameplay, right? He likes to be aggressive. He likes to rush in and find those opportunities. He doesn't like to play the passive play style.
I want to say a lot of times I find that junglers just are kind of fluid when it comes to marksman and jungler roles. A lot of them are kind of interchangeable in that. But when we used to watch Kohari, and he earned that nickname Kohari the Brave, we were watching a lot of the times his team would be doing all right, but kind of struggling. And then Kohari would have to start taking that game on his back and just absolutely just put on a clinic for us. Here, in the jungle role, he doesn't have to be that savior. He can control the game from the beginning and make sure that the pace is at something that's comfortable for him. So I do like this, and especially what we saw from Lucas. He understands the heroes. He understands the damage that they can take. He's not, especially for a hero like Lucas, which we saw in the first game, he understands that he can be in there with 10%, get that little kill in, and then still be able to find himself an escape. So I definitely am liking Kohari the jungler more than Kohari the gold laner right now.
Yeah, nonetheless, Kohari is proving to us he is Kohari the Brave, and the entire team did an amazing job working together with each other and against their opponents. And we can see that even with the draft phase, I would say, they came in prepared. Their draft just seemed to make more sense compared to the era. And let's hear more from the team as we have an interview with Khan, the mid laner. What's up, Khan? How are you doing? Congratulations on that amazing performance. I actually can't hear you.
Okay. Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. Well, I was just gonna say that, I'm proud of my team, and we worked hard. We made this team less than a week before NACT, so there's a lot of doubts. A lot of people didn't believe in us, but as long as you believe each other, then it works. It all works out. So thank you guys for supporting us. It means a lot to everyone.
Yeah, I mean, a week before the tournament starts. So how did this team actually come together? Were you guys friends who always play with each other? Like, how did you form this team?
We were people who knew each other, but I actually quit the game before NACT started, so I just came back and then I was looking for a team, and then it was kind of like an outcast. We call ourselves the villains because we're the outcasts. So we just formed a team of whoever was left, whoever was stranded, and it all came out. It all came out good. It all came out good. So I'm proud.
And it came out perfect. And you can see on the screen, I don't know if you can see it, but VCon actually said, even if my team makes mistakes, it's fine. They still have Con on their team. So you must have proven to the team that you are the strong player that everyone can depend on.
Yes, I try to bring everyone up when I can. I know I'm not the best, but at the end of the day, as long as you try to bring everyone together and not argue, then it all works out. So I'm proud. I'm really proud right now.
Yeah, you did amazing on that Farsa. I'm sure it's gonna get banned now, moving up throughout the series. Now, this season it's been a little bit different. This is a best out of 3 single elimination. How do you feel that impact how the team plays? Does it bring more opportunities or more fear?
I feel like it brings more opportunity for us to practice or try to adjust to what the enemy plays. The first game we were winning and then we started kind of messing up, and after we got used to it, I feel like it got easier for us to adapt, and the second game it was much smoother. We didn't make as much mistakes, we just closed it out easy. So I think definitely more matches will bring more opportunities.
Yeah, and you guys really made very little mistakes in the second game and proved to be the strong team moving forward. And looking at the other teams that are still available, which team are you most excited to go up against?
Well, I lost to BTK in 2023, so I would like to versus them in this year again. I really want to beat them. I know that would be hard, but that's the one team I really want to look forward to.
Well, and we hope that is going to happen with this with the series coming forward. Thank you for joining us for this interview and amazing performance once again. We hope you guys continue the momentum moving forward.